The air was hot and heavy in the slave market. Dust floated in the sunlight like ash from a dying fire. Crowds of aliens shouted, laughed, and bargained over bodies, old, young, tall. Weak, all for sale like animals. In the corner of a rusted cage sat a girl. Her skin was pale blue, but bruised in many places. Her dress was torn and full of holes. One arm was wrapped in dirty cloth, stained red and brown. But what made people turn away were her teeth. Broken, jagged, and yellow, she had once been beautiful. Maybe. Now she looked like something left to rot. Next up, Z214, the slave trader yelled. He kicked the cage, and the girl inside flinched. She stood slowly, her legs shaking. Her eyes looked dead. No hope, no life, just silence. She's strong enough to work, the trader lied. Perfect for low-class jobs or anything you want. Ha! The crowd didn't move. No one raised a hand. She doesn't even have all her teeth. Someone laughed. 2 credits, a voice shouted, mocking, 2 credits. That's cheaper than a street meal. Another joked. The trader's smile faded. He was losing money just standing here. No one else. He called, his voice desperate, going once. Going twice, I'll take her, a calm voice said from the back. Silence fell across the crowd, heads turned, eyes narrowed. A human man stepped forward, wearing dusty boots and a dark coat. His face was calm, serious, unreadable. Are you joking, human? The trader asked. She's not even worth feeding. I said, I'll take her, the human repeated. Holding out 2 credits, the trader snatched the money like it was gold. Fine, she's yours, he said, unlocking the cage. Don't blame me if she dies by morning. The girl didn't move. She looked at the human with fear. He wasn't holding a weapon. Not yelling, not smiling either. Just, come, he said softly. Holding out a coat, she backed away, pressing herself to the wall. I'm not here to hurt you, he said. His voice was quiet, like a breeze before nightfall. Slowly, like a scared animal, she stepped forward. He wrapped the coat around her shoulders. She shook like a leaf. The crowd stared, confused. What's a human doing with that thing? Someone whispered, maybe he collects broken toys. Another sneered. The man didn't answer them. He just walked away with the girl beside him. She walked slow, limping slightly. Her feet were bare, cut and swollen. Every step she took, she expected pain, but none came. No whip, no chain, no order. Just footsteps in the dust, side by side. He led her to a small transport. It was old, scratched, but clean inside. She looked around like she had never seen such a thing. And maybe she hadn't. Sit, he said, gently. She obeyed without speaking. Her hands were shaking. And her eyes stayed low. He handed her water. She stared at it, confused. Drink, he said. She took a small sip, then more, then more. And then she cried. Quietly, the human said nothing. He let her cry. Because some pain needs silence, not words. Do you have a name? He asked after a while. She shook her head. They called me Z14. She whispered. That's not a name, he said. He thought for a moment. Luma, he said. She blinked, confused. That's your name now? He said. You're not a number anymore. Her lips trembled. She had never been called anything soft before. She repeated the name in a whisper, Luma, for the first time in years. She felt something spark in her chest. Small, weak, almost dead, but there hope. The human didn't smile, but his voice was calm when he spoke. You're not going back to that market, he said. You're coming home with me, and in that moment, the broken girl with no teeth, no name, and no future became someone worth saving, someone worth loving, someone human. Asterisk, the small ship shook gently as it lifted off the ground. Luma sat in the corner, hugging her knees. She kept her eyes low, like she was still in the cage. The coat the human gave her was too big, but warm. Warmth was something she hadn't felt in years. The man sat in the pilot's seat. Quiet. He didn't chain her, didn't shout. Didn't even look at her like she was trash. He just flew. As if saving broken slaves was normal for him. As if she wasn't a mistake, her stomach made a sound loud. Hungry, painful, she covered it quickly. Afraid he'd hear and get angry, but he had already stood up. He walked to the small food unit near the wall and pressed a few buttons. A tray came out with a bowl of soup, a piece of bread, and a cup of clean water. He carried it to her slowly and knelt down. "Eat," he said. Simply, Luma stared at the food like it was poison. She had seen food used as traps before. She had been punished for stealing bread once they broke her finger. She didn't trust kindness, not from anyone, especially not from a human. Her hands shook as she reached out. The bread was soft, still warm. The soup smelled sweet, maybe with real vegetables. She took a bite, too fast, then another. Then another. Within seconds, the bread was gone. She grabbed the bowl and drank the soup like water. Her hands spilled some, but she didn't stop. Suddenly, she froze. Her body tensed, her stomach twisted. She dropped the bowl and ran to the corner. She threw up everything she had just eaten. The human didn't yell. He didn't hit her. He just walked over with a cloth and wiped her mouth. "It's okay," he said, softly. "Your stomach's not used to food." Luma looked at him with wide eyes, confused. She expected pain. She expected to be called useless instead. He brought more water and helped her sip it slowly. "You have to go slow now," he said. "You'll get stronger soon." She nodded like a scared child. Tears fell again, silent, soft, and full of shame. He gave her space, sat across from her. "My name is Mason," he said. "You already have a name, Luma." She looked up. That name still felt strange in her mouth. "Luma," she whispered again. Like it was a secret, he didn't push her to talk more. He opened a small locker and pulled out a blanket. He handed it to her. "It's clean," he added. As if he knew her mind would question it, she took it slowly, pressing it to her face. It smelled like home, but she had never had a home before. The ship landed a few minutes later. They were on the edge of a junkyard world, full of broken ships, metal towers, and rusted machines. Not beautiful, but it was peaceful. No slavers, no chains, no eyes watching her with hunger. Mason helped her down the ramp. Her feet still ached, and she limped. He didn't rush her, didn't sigh, just walked beside her. The door to his shelter opened with a soft hiss. Inside was simple metal floors, a table, a bed, a kitchen corner, and something she had never seen before, pictures. She stopped and stared at a photo on the wall. It showed Mason younger, smiling with two older humans. "Your family?" she asked, her voice small. He nodded. "They're gone now," he said, with a far look in his eyes. "But they taught me something." "What?" she asked. "No one is born worthless," he said. "Everyone deserves a second chance." She sat at the table. Not sure what to do, he placed a small spoon beside her. "You'll eat more later," he said. "We'll go slow." She picked up the spoon, stared at it. She had never used one before. She had always eaten with dirty hands, torn fingers, or stolen scraps. He showed her how to hold it. She copied him. Her hands trembling. For a moment, she looked like a little girl learning for the first time. And in some ways, she was, later that night. She curled up on the soft mat near the heater. He gave her another blanket. She watched him from the floor. "Why did you buy me?" she asked. Her voice was cracked like dry leaves. Mason looked at her for a long moment. "Because no one else would," he said. "And because I saw someone worth saving." She didn't understand why. But his words filled her chest with something warm. Like the soup, but deeper, she closed her eyes. For the first time in her life, she slept without fear and outside. The junkyard stars watched over the girl who had nothing and the man who gave her everything. Morning light crept through the dusty window of the shelter. It touched Luma's face gently, like something from a dream. She opened her eyes slowly, not to a whip or a shout, but to the quiet hum of machines and the smell of something warm. She sat up quickly, heart racing, confused by the peace. Was this real? Or just a trick? She looked around, still wrapped in the blanket Mason gave her. No chains, no locks, no guards, just silence. Then she saw Mason in the small kitchen. Cooking something in a metal pot, he turned when he heard her stir. "Good morning," he said, voice calm. Her hands gripped the blanket tighter. Unsure how to answer, "Are you hungry?" he asked. She nodded slowly. He filled a small bowl with warm grain mash and placed it in front of her with a spoon. Luma hesitated, then whispered, "Thank you." It was the first time she had said those words and meant them. As she ate slowly, he sat down across the table. "You said they called you Z14?" he said. She nodded, eyes low. "That's not a name," he continued. "It's a label." Like a box on a shelf, she stayed quiet, unsure what to say. "I want to give you something else," he said. "A real name, a new start." She looked up, confused, but... "I'm not real," she whispered. "I'm just... used?" "No," he said firmly. "You're alive, you're here. And you're more than what they made you believe." He stood, went to a drawer, and pulled out a small chip tablet. He tapped it, showing her something. A word appeared on the screen. "Luma, this is your name now," he said. "It means light because you survived the dark." Luma stared at the word. Her lips moved, trying to say it. Luma, she whispered. Her voice shook, like it didn't belong to her. But when she said it again, a tiny smile formed. "Luma," he nodded. "Yes, that's you." Tears filled her eyes, but she quickly wiped them away. "I don't deserve a name," she said. "You didn't deserve the cage either," he replied. "That doesn't mean it's your fault." She hugged the tablet close like a treasure. No one had ever given her anything that wasn't followed by pain. But Mason kept surprising her. He didn't ask for anything. He didn't touch her unless she gave permission. And most of all, he waited. Later that day, Mason showed her around the small scrapyard outside. It was filled with broken ships, tools, and machines. "This is my work," he explained. "I fix things. Rebuild them." She followed him quietly, watching how his hands worked with care. Metal, wires, sparks, things she didn't understand. "Can I learn?" she asked softly. He turned, surprised, then smiled just a little. "Of course," he said. "We'll start with simple things." He handed her a broken panel and a small tool. "This turns the bolts," he said, showing her how. Her fingers trembled, but she followed his lead. The first bolt slipped, the second too, but the third one turned, and she looked up. Eyes wide. "I did it," she said. "You did," he nodded. And for a second, she forgot the pain, the past, the broken pieces. In that moment, she was just Luma, a girl learning something new, a girl building something, not being torn apart. That night, Mason gave her something else, a small toothbrush. "This is for your teeth," he said gently. She stared at it like it was from another world. She had never owned anything before, not clothes, not shoes, not even a name. And now she had this. She took it carefully, then asked, "Why are you helping me?" Mason didn't answer right away. He sat down across from her and said, "I once lost someone I cared about. My sister," he added, voice low. She was taken. "I couldn't save her." Luma watched him closely. "I can't go back and change that," he said. "But maybe I can do something now. Maybe saving you is a way to stop that pain from growing. Luma reached out slowly, placing her hand over his. It was small and fragile, but full of meaning. "Thank you," she whispered again. Not just for the food, or the blanket, or the toothbrush, but for giving her a name, for giving her the chance to become someone new. That night, as she lay down on the soft mat, she whispered her name again and again. Luma, 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 and for the first time in her life, she smiled without hiding her face. Luma sat quietly on the edge of the workbench. Her hands were clean now, her arms healing. The bruises on her face were fading. But her smile still stayed hidden behind her hand. She laughed sometimes, only when Mason said something funny or when she fixed a bolt correctly. But every time she laughed, she covered her mouth. Always, Mason noticed. He never said anything at first, but he watched how she avoided mirrors, how she flinched when she caught her reflection in a window, how her fingers touched her lips like they didn't belong to her. One evening, after a quiet meal, he asked, "Do your teeth hurt?" Luma looked down. "No," she whispered. "Not now, but they bother you," he said. Softly, she hesitated, then nodded. "Not the pain," she said. The look, Mason didn't speak for a moment. Then he stood up and reached into a drawer. He pulled out a small metal chip and placed it in her hand. "What's this?" she asked. "It's a dental regen credit," he said. Her eyes widened. "That costs too much," she said quickly. "I'm not worth that." "Yes." "You are," he said firmly. She shook her head. "You could have used that to fix your ship." "I'd rather fix you," he replied. Without hesitation, tears filled her eyes. "I don't know how to smile anymore," she whispered. "Then we'll learn together," he said. The next day, Mason took her to a small clinic hidden behind the scrapyard. An old alien woman greeted them with a nod. She didn't ask questions. She just looked at Luma's mouth, gently touched her jaw. "You've been hurt badly," the alien said. Luma nodded. "I'll do my best," the woman said. "It won't be easy, but it will be worth it." The regen process took time. Small machines cleaned and repaired what they could. Some of her teeth had to be replaced with synthetic ones. Others healed slowly through biogel. Luma stayed silent through the pain. Not once did she complain. Mason waited outside, pacing. When the door finally opened, Luma stepped out with her hand still over her mouth. The alien woman smiled. "She looks different now," she said. Mason walked up to her gently. "Let me see," he said. Luma hesitated, then slowly lowered her hand. Her new smile was soft. Not perfect, but strong and full. Her teeth were white, even, and whole. It was the first time Mason saw her full face, and it made him blink. Luma looked away, unsure. "Is it strange?" she asked. "No," he said. "It's beautiful." She didn't know how to respond. No one had ever said that to her before, especially not about her face. That night, back at the shelter, she stood in front of the small mirror for a long time. She stared at herself like she was meeting a stranger. She smiled slowly, watching the way her face changed. Her eyes filled again, but this time with wonder, not pain. She walked out into the main room where Mason was working. "I didn't know I could look like this," she said. "You always could," he replied. "You just needed someone to believe it." From that day on, Luma began to change more. She smiled openly. She laughed without hiding. She even helped Mason greet visitors. She stood taller, walked with confidence. One day, a group of scavenger kids came by to trade parts. They stared at Luma with curiosity. One of them said, "She's pretty." Luma heard it and turned red, but she didn't hide. She smiled at the child and waved. Later that evening, Mason handed her a wrapped package. "What is it?" she asked. "Open it," he said. Inside was a simple dress, soft blue, clean, beautiful. "I thought you might want something that felt like yours," he said. Luma held it close. "Why are you so kind to me?" she asked, her voice shaking again. "Because you never deserved anything less," he said. "And because when I look at you, I don't see a slave. I see family," she cried again. But this time in his arms, not from fear, not from pain, but because someone finally saw her, not as a number, not as a thing, but as a person, Luma, with a name, with a smile, with a future. The sun was setting behind the junkyard towers. Golden light spilled across broken machines and half-buried ship parts. Luma stood outside Mason's shelter. Her dress blowing gently in the wind, she was smiling, helping him organize old panels and tools. Her hands were stronger now, her eyes brighter. She laughed when a panel slipped from his hands and hit the ground with a loud clank. "You dropped it again," she teased. Mason raised an eyebrow. "It's the wind," he said. "Sure it is," she smiled. Just then, a dark shape moved near the gate. Mason's body stiffened. He placed the tool down slowly and turned toward the figure. A man stepped forward, tall, armored, and smirking. 3 thugs followed behind him, all wearing black and gold slave cartel symbols. Luma froze. Her breath caught in her throat. "She knew that face, Karn," she whispered, almost too quiet to hear. Karn, the slaver who had once sold her for 2 credits. The man who had kicked her ribs when she couldn't stand. The one who had called her trash with every breath. Well, Karn said, his voice like oil. "Didn't think I'd find you here, girl." He looked her up and down slowly. "You cleaned up nice." Mason stepped between them. "Calm but firm. She doesn't belong to you," he said. Karn laughed. "She's branded," he replied. "She still has the registry mark burned into her shoulder. She's cartel property. And I'm here to collect." Luma stepped back. Shaking, old fear climbed up her spine like a shadow. Her fingers curled into her dress. "Mason," she whispered, "he's lying." "I'm not his anymore, I know," Mason said without looking at her. He kept his eyes on Karn. "You sold her," he said. "She's mine now," Karn smirked. "Oh? So you think you can just buy your way into freedom? Cartel law says she's still tagged. She comes with me. Or you both die." One of the thugs pulled a weapon from his side. Mason didn't flinch. Instead, he raised his wrist and tapped a hidden control. A silent alarm blinked across a small screen behind him. Turrets on top of the shelter powered up with a soft hum. Hidden cameras lit up and automated defenses locked onto the intruders. Karn stepped back, surprised. "What is this?" he growled. "You think you can scare me with toys?" "I don't have to scare you," Mason said. "I just have to protect her. You're just a human fixer," Karn said. Mason's eyes narrowed. "Wrong," he replied. "I'm a war mechanic. Retired, I built defense grids on 3 planets during the Earth's Aetheri conflict. I'm not just some junkyard man." The thugs hesitated, eyes flicking between Mason and the glowing turrets. "You have no right," Karn barked. "She's tagged." Mason took a deep breath and turned toward Luma. "Do you still have the mark?" he asked, gently. She nodded, eyes wet on my shoulder. She said, "I couldn't reach it to clean it off." Mason walked over to her slowly, pulled back her dress sleeve. There it was, the cruel burn of the slave brand. Without a word, he pulled out a dermal laser from his belt. "You don't have to carry this anymore," he said. "If you want, I can remove it." Luma nodded, her voice shaking. "Yes, please," she said. The laser hummed as Mason worked. In less than a minute, the mark was gone. The skin would heal, clean, smooth, free. Mason turned back to Karn. "She's unmarked now," he said. "She's not yours." And she never was. Karn's face twisted in rage. "You'll pay for this," he snarled. "Cartel doesn't forget. I'm not afraid of your cartel," Mason said calmly. "Tell them this. She's not a slave. She's family." Karn growled and motioned for his men to leave. They backed off, slowly, eyes full of confusion and fear. As the gate closed behind them, Luma dropped to her knees. She covered her face and sobbed. Mason knelt beside her. "You're safe," he said. "They can't touch you anymore, but they'll come back," she whispered. "They always come back. Let them," Mason said. "They'll find out what it means to challenge someone with nothing to lose." Luma looked up at him. Her eyes red, but shining. "You didn't run," she said. "You could have given me back." He placed a hand on her shoulder. "I'd rather lose everything than give up the one person who made me feel like I have something again." That night, she sat near the fire Mason built. Her hands warmed, her heart racing, but full. No one had ever stood for her. No one had ever faced monsters just for her. But now she knew she wasn't property. She wasn't just a name or a face. She was Luma. And she was worth fighting for. The night sky over the junkyard was darker than usual. No stars, no moon, just thick clouds hiding everything. Luma stood by the door of the shelter. Holding a small tool Mason gave her, her fingers shook, not from fear, but from something new readiness. Inside, Mason adjusted a shield emitter. His jaw was tight, his eyes scanning every angle. "They'll come tonight," he said. "They lost face in front of their own men. Cartels never let that go." Luma nodded. She wasn't the same scared girl anymore. She still felt fear, but now she had something stronger. She had someone who believed in her. She had a home worth protecting. "I want to help," she said. Mason turned to her. "You've helped more than you know, but if you want to stand with me," he added, handing her a come device, "then stay close. And listen when I tell you to run." "I won't run," she replied. Her voice was soft, but steady. He gave a small nod. They set traps through the yard. Motion sensors, flash bombs, sonic mines, and drone eyes. Mason had been a war mechanic, but tonight, he wasn't fighting for credits or a contract. He was fighting for someone he called family. Just after midnight, the first alarm buzzed. Red lights flashed on a tiny screen. "They're here," Mason said. Luma's heart pounded in her chest. A loud crash echoed near the fence, then another. Figures moved in the shadows, fast, armed and silent. Cartel hunters. Mason activated the first wave of defenses. Lasers fired warning shots across the ground. 2 attackers were caught in a sonic blast and fell back screaming. But more kept coming. Smarter, better trained. Luma crouched behind a metal crate, eyes scanning for movement. One thug slipped past the outer traps and headed toward the back door. Mason was busy fending off 3 others from the front. Luma's breath caught. She knew what she had to do. She picked up a scrap bar and moved silently. The thug raised his blaster, ready to shoot through the door panel. Luma slammed the bar into the back of his leg. He dropped with a cry before he could react. She grabbed Mason's old taser from the ground and pressed it to his neck. The man shook and collapsed. Unconscious, she stood there panting, shocked by her own strength. Then the backlight flickered. Another thug had seen her. He aimed at her head, but before he could fire, Mason appeared like lightning. He tackled the man and threw him into a pile of scrap. "You okay?" Mason asked. Luma nodded. "You saved the door," he said. "You saved me," she whispered. The attack kept coming. It was longer than either of them expected. The cartel had sent their elite team this time. Not just thugs, but trained killers. Mason got hit in the shoulder by a glancing shot. He grunted, but kept fighting. Blood soaked his shirt. Luma dragged him behind the main shelter wall and patched the wound with shaky hands. "You need rest," she said. "Not yet," he groaned. "Not until you're safe." Suddenly, the power flickered. They had found the generator. "We've got 5 minutes before the shields drop," Mason said. "Then they'll storm the shelter. Luma stood up. "No," she said. "I won't let them win." She ran to the scrap pile and dug out something. Mason had shown her weeks ago, a fuel torch pack. She wired it to the old engine casing and placed it near the outer gate. As the attackers pushed forward, she triggered the torch and backed away. The explosion shook the yard. Metal flew. Smoke rose. And the cartel team fell back in chaos. Some screamed, some ran. The rest didn't return. Mason limped to her side, coughing. "You just improvised a bomb," he said. Luma gave a tired smile. "You taught me how." The fire burned low in the distance, but the danger was gone. Luma sat beside Mason, both breathing heavy. The silence was louder than anything else. But in it, there was peace. "You could have died," he said. "So could you," she replied. "But we didn't, because we protected each other." Mason looked at her, proud and broken and strong all at once. "You're not a slave," he said. "You're not just family anymore. You're my daughter." Luma's breath caught. Tears filled her eyes. She had never heard those words in her life. Not once. She leaned into him, her face buried in his shoulder. "I never had a father," she whispered. "You do now," he replied, and for the first time in all her days. Luma didn't feel small. She didn't feel broken. She felt free. Truly free. The junkyard was quiet again. Days had passed since the night of the attack. The fires had cooled, the smoke had cleared. But something inside Luma still burned, not fear. Not pain, but something stronger. She sat outside the shelter with Mason, both sipping warm tea under the rising twin suns. His arm was wrapped in a healing band. Her hands still carried small cuts. But their hearts were full. Bird-like drones flew overhead, scanning the land, not to protect scrap, but to protect home, their home. "I still think about it," Luma said. Softly. That place, the cage, the market. Mason didn't rush her. He let her speak. "I remember thinking no one would ever call me anything but a number," she whispered. "But now, I have a name." He nodded. "You gave it power," he said. "You made it yours." Luma stood and walked toward the mirror Mason had hung beside the workshop door. She looked at herself for a long time. Clean face, full smile, clear eyes. A person, not property. She placed her hand on the glass. "I'm Luma," she said. "I'm not for sale." Behind her, Mason smiled quietly. She had grown in ways he never imagined, and he had grown too. The pain of losing his sister had left a hole, but Luma filled it, not to replace, but to heal. They worked together now, fixing things side by side. She could repair small engines, reroute wires, and even talk to traders without fear. Sometimes she helped young scavengers who came with broken bots. They asked for the girl with the brave hands, and she helped. Every time, one afternoon, a message pinged on Mason's system. A government record agent had responded. Luma's registration was cleared. The old brand removed from all databases. She was officially free. She sat with Mason as he read the message aloud. Her fingers gripped the armrest when he finished. She stared at the words on the screen. "Free citizen." She repeated it, slowly, like a spell. "I don't feel different," she said. "That's because freedom isn't paperwork," he said. "It's what you do with your life now." That night, Mason handed her a folded sheet of paper. She opened it slowly. It was a drawing, crude but clear. It showed two people standing on a small hill, one tall, one smaller, both smiling. "I made this," he said. "It's not perfect, but it's us." Luma stared at it with wide eyes. "No one's ever drawn me before," she said. "I didn't know I could look like this." "You look like family," he said. "You are family." She hugged him. And this time, she didn't cry. She didn't have to. The ache in her chest had been replaced with something else, peace. Later that week, they planted small light seeds near the shelter. Mason had traded for them long ago, but never used them. Luma knelt beside the soil, pressing one seed at a time. "What do these do?" she asked. "You'll see." Mason smiled at night. The seeds began to glow, soft blues and greens lighting up the ground like stars on earth. Luma gasped, walking between them barefoot. "They're beautiful," she said. "They grow brighter the longer they stay in the ground," Mason explained. "Kind of like people." She reached out, grabbed his hand. "I don't ever want to leave this place," she said. "You won't have to," he replied. "This is your home now." One day, a small orphan alien girl came to the yard. Lost and shaking, Luma brought her inside, gave her water, fed her soup. The girl didn't speak much, just clung to her arm. Later that evening, Luma told Mason, "She reminds me of me." He nodded. "She needs someone, so did I," Luma said. "And you were there. Now it's my turn." Mason watched as she gave the girl her own blanket, her own pillow, and told her softly, "You're safe here." And just like that, the cycle of pain was broken. Luma had been bought for 2 credits, thrown away like garbage. But now she stood as someone who gave love, who created light where there had been darkness. The stars above twinkled quietly, as if watching the girl who had once been caged. And the human who had set her free, Luma, stood under those stars and whispered, "I was nothing, but now I'm more. I'm not a price. I'm not a slave. I'm family." And in that moment, the junkyard didn't feel broken anymore. It felt full. It felt like forever. It felt like home.